Hello everyone, my name is Roya and welcome to another Top 5 Wednesday video. So Top 5 Wednesday was created by Ginger Reads Lainey and it is hosted by Thoughts on Tomes, and I will leave a link down below in case you want to check it out. So this week's topic is books that got, series that got worse with each book in the series, and boy do I have some for you here. So the first example that I have is a series that actually, as far as I've gotten, it is still really good, and I still really like it, but it just wasn't as good, and that is the Emberverse series by S.M. Sterling. So the first trilogy is pretty much the same. I felt mostly the same about all three books. They were all equally good. The second one maybe slightly less, but honestly, the whole trilogy was really good. But then after that, each book in the series, and there are seriously 13 books now, each book in the series just got slightly draggier and slightly more redundant, and even though I still really like the whole series as a whole and I highly recommend it, it just kind of, it just gets really draggy and more info dumpy, and I don't know, it's just weird that way. The next example that I have is Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. So Outlander was the very first book that I read in 2016, and I loved it. It quickly became one of my favorite books ever, and I was so excited to read the second book. And then when I read the second book, it was still really good. I still really liked it a lot, and I had a lot of fun reading it, but I just didn't think that it was as good. And then each book in the series gets slightly less good until the fourth one, which is I've only read the first four so far, but the fourth one, I seriously only gave it 3 stars because it was, it was still pretty, enjoyable enough that I wasn't going to give it a bad rating, but at the same time, it was nowhere even close to Outlander. So basically, just Outlander is full of such clever, witty character banter and so many intense situations. Basically, Diana Gabaldon wrote that book as an experiment to see whether or not she really wanted to be an author forever or not. And so she just went really all out with it. And just, that's why it's just, crazy situation after crazy situation with, no boring parts and no lulls in the action or anything. And so that's why that book is just so good, and I just love it so much. And then after that book, the rest of the series isn't like that at all. And not only is it not like that at all, but we just get way more annoying characters. A lot of the characters aren't the same, and the ones who are the same are just slightly more annoying, and there's just nowhere near as much action or as much, witty character banter or anything. The first book, I just seriously was cracking up at every little thing that someone said because it was just so fucking funny, and then after that, it's nope. The next example that I have to talk about is The Dark Queen by Susan Carroll, and The Dark Queen is another book that when I read it, I was about 16 years old, and I loved the crap out of that book. It was so good. And then the second one was only slightly less good, again, just like Outlander, but then the rest of the series was just, each one got worse and worse, where I still really liked the series as a whole. But for some reason, with each book, it's just not as interesting because we just get new characters who aren't as good, or we just the action isn't as good. And then I think in the 5th book or something, there's a part where the author actually messes up 2 characters' ages, because in the second book, one of them wasn't born yet, and the other one was about to be. And so then in the 4th book, or the 5th book, or whichever one it was, one of them is older than the other one, when actually the older one couldn't possibly have been any older than the other one, and that just bothered me so much. But I really, really love the Dark Queen series, and you guys should seriously check it out. Next example that I have is Dune by Frank Herbert. So I read the first book, Dune, about 10 years ago, and I really liked it when I read it. I'm not sure how I would feel about it now, but I'd probably still like it at least a little bit. But then basically the second book, literally nothing happens in it, and it's super boring. People just talk the entire time. And then the third one, like, slightly picks up, actually, from the second one. Like, I think the first one and the third one are the only ones really worth reading. Like, the second one is so devoid of anything happening that literally you could just skip that one. And just read the cliff notes if you even, like, need to, pretty much. And then after the third one, I swear I tried to read the entire series, but the fourth one was so boring. Like, we get all new characters because, like, 100 years have passed or more. And, like, the whole thing just felt like it made no sense. And then the fifth one was even worse. Even more time had passed, and, like, it was completely unrelated to, like, the events of any of the previous ones. And then finally, the sixth one, I could only get 10 pages in before I was just bored out of my mind and, like, did not even finish that book. So that really sucked. Because when I was like 18 and I read the first one, I really liked it a lot, and I was really hoping that the rest of the series would, you know, get better from there, but nope. So the last example that I have for you guys is the Symphony of Ages series by Elizabeth Hayden. And when I read the first book, Rhapsody, I loved that book so much. It was so good. It's about basically this half-elf lady who is a namer, and so she can't tell a lie or else it'll become true. And so she can, like, cause stuff to happen by saying something. And she plays, like, every freaking instrument, and can do all this stuff through music, and she's just a really awesome character. And so it's a really weird series, and it's an epic fantasy, and it's super good. And then the second one just is not as good. The third one is even worse. And then finally, once you get into, like, the second trilogy, it's just not even, like, the fourth book was not even worth reading. And that made me super sad. Like, I had to force my way through the fourth book, and that really bugged me. But I still love the first book to this day. But honestly, like, after that one, I wouldn't really recommend the rest of this series, and that just kind of makes me sad. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what series you guys have read that you felt just got worse every time. And I will see you soon with a new video. Bye!